everybody, and welcome to another episode, I think 14 of Pcarmarket Lives Inside the Market. My name is David Jacobson, and we're really happy to be here today to bring to you an episode that's really going to be very insightful with some great information on a car that is becoming hot stuff. And I'm here with Jim Barry.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, valuation expert extraordinaire. And we're excited to bring this to you. We were going to have Kevin here today, but we had some rain. Kevin had some ice.
A
lot of ice, and we wanted to keep him safe. And but Kevin, we miss you. We'll see you hopefully next week for the next one. And but today is going to be exciting because we have been receiving a lot of messages from people that wanted to see and wanted to hear about the 997s.
Absolutely.
They are hot stuff.
Big topic.
Big topic. They are very important cars today for many reasons. As a matter of fact, I left myself a few notes. You know, as you get older, you start to leave yourself notes so you remember what you want to say. But we are big 997 fans. I know, Jim, that you personally, this is a car that is right after your heart for many reasons.
Yeah.
But the current market of the 997, they are... there's a lot of things going on here that are going to affect this, right? Number one is the 911 prices for the new cars. They're soaring, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, to buy a 911 today, a 992, just a Carrera S, what are we talking about, roughly?
A lot of money. I mean, because nobody really gets them with no options. So you're always looking minimum 130. We had one with an MSRP of 170, and it was a 4S. I mean, that's like turbo money. You know what I mean? So they've gotten very, very expensive. And I remember for the longest time, you could always get like an entry-level Carrera, which is a lot of car, in the 80s, 90s. I mean, and just all of a sudden, it's like almost overnight, that became a non-existent thing, Yeah,
I guess, the new Porsche is for the rich. It always was, I guess. It always was, but more so than ever. The pricing is very, very expensive. But in comparison to other cars that are out there today, it all makes sense.
It all makes sense.
It all makes sense in a crazy way.
You go SUV shopping and you realize how cheap it is to buy a nice used 911.
Yeah, that's right. That's so true.
Right.
So just to stay on topic here, as the sizes increase, sports cars become more touring cars. I mean, when I look at these cars today, they're so comfortable, so luxurious. You can't really call a new 911 a sports car, or maybe it's a sports car of today. Mm-hmm. But when you compare it to the 997s, 993s, 996s, they're not really sports cars the way I like to look at them. They're more touring cars. And also the 997 is the next visceral step to a 993. When you look at the 993 and you look at the last of the air-cooled car, then the 996s come out, which we love. And then the 997 kind of harkens back to the look of the 997. And also, with the hydraulic steering and so forth, it still has a real feel, behind the wheel. Right, Jim?
Yeah. And it's funny because when those cars were all coming out, everyone, Porsche guys they always complain when there's a change. But now that you look back, that was when they got it really right. It was really dialed in.
Absolutely. The size was right. The weight balance, the hydraulic steering, it was just not too large. And also, that's compared to the electric steering, by the way, of the new cars, which is fabulous in its own right and its technology, but you do lose something with this technology. And as far as the hydraulics, also the massive change from the, when the 993 ended and the air-cooled cars ended, I believe that this change right now, to the 993, to the 997, to the 991 is as big of a deal. When you lose the hydraulic steering, you also have the turbos that were available in a manual and PDK for that crossover period. You can get actually your last Metzger stick turbo, but you can also get a 997.2 turbo in a PDK. A real PDK.
Yep.
And so it really is a great transition year, exciting, the end of a lot, the beginning of a lot. Mm-hmm. So the 997 is going to go down in history as really one of the most important vehicles that Porsche had ever made. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. The values are reflecting that too,
And amen. And the values are reflecting that. Hence, which is why we are doing the 997 review today. So where does the 997... So Jim, in your estimation before, we're going to go through a couple of the cars here.
Right.
And different variants of the 997, 0.1, turbo, blah, blah, blah. And before we do that, though, where do you think the 997 stands currently in the grand scheme of things in the Porsche world? And where where will it stand in the future? Like we talk about the 993, we talk about how important that was to Porsche and all their makes and models, but the 993 in particular, because the end of the air-cooled cars, the design, they actually went away from their typical design with Tony Hatter designing that what he calls an extreme change in Porsche's design, and they were very nervous about it before it came out. So how does the 997 compare to that, and what does the future look like as generations look back at this?
Well, I think in the way we've said it, when we talk about the RS 4.0, it's really just the last analog car they made. That's really just the best way to say it without, renting a lecture hall and talking for hours about it, because that's really what it is. And it's also probably the last car they designed when the market was a lot smaller, meaning after the 997, they just had so many more competitors. You know what I mean? Just from all these different manufacturers, including just regular cars and even SUVs that are fast. And, it just got into a world where everything had a fast car. Everybody was making a fast car.
See, that's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, that horsepower and acceleration and just sheer numbers were really big time across the board. You didn't have to be a big sports car manufacturer anymore to have a rocket ship. And you're right. You're right.
It was getting harder to stand out. You used to get a 911, 0 to 60, what was beating you? Now, any $45,000, $50,000 car is going to, have a decent 0 to 60 time. I mean, even cheaper cars than that. So, it's a crazy world. It's fun. There's options, but it kind of took a little bit of the special feeling out of that.
Yeah, and you know what? For us, for you viewers and for us, it's a big deal. The word visceral is overused a lot.
Yeah.
And you know how I like it, and people make fun of me for using it all the time, visceral Dave, because the visceral experience to me in driving these cars are really what it's all about. When you look at the speed and acceleration on a lot of what's out there today, and a lot of manufacturers, really it became less expensive to produce power because of the technology.
Right.
But with that, you lose all that feel and character.
What was the feel? I think people were on a quest for the numbers. I used to battle with my father-in-law about that. He reads all the magazines, and he used to, he's like a Viper Z06 kind of guy, which, I respect that. But, when you're just looking at the numbers, it's like, why would you buy a Porsche over a Corvette? For less money, you got a better 0 to 60.
Right.
Drive the thing, and you understand. So, you got to get yourself out of the books and out of those 0 to 60 times and the quarter mile times and all that stuff, and just drive it.
Just feel that experience. And I'll never forget. We've talked about this before, but I'll never forget going through Car and Driver or Road and Track. I forget what it was, and looking at the 0 to 60 times, and always looking for that highlighted spot. What was the fastest car? And and it was always it was a big deal at that time. It was. But it was also interesting that the stick shifts, the manuals were always the fastest, and I always find it very interesting how eventually the technology made it where we cannot, as humans, shift as fast as the PDK, the double clutch transmissions, and all of a sudden the world changed. To me, that was one of the biggest changes that I had to wrap my head around in this world, that manual transmissions were slower than automatic transmissions.
Yeah, and there was a brief time, because I remember my best friend bought, and he's like one of us, but he actually went and bought a Tiptronic Turbo 997 because the 0 to 60 was faster. And I said to him, I'm like, Chris, what are you doing? And, because he got caught up in it. And, I drove the car. Yeah, it was a rocket ship. But, it's like, I didn't really like the car that much. I mean, it was fun, It was a cool thing. It was a novelty thing. It was the new car, the new turbo. But, I think he had that 3 months.
And that's that's what happens. You really get caught up in that, and you realize there's not much behind that. But you know what? I get it. There's a lot of people that drive, Lamborghinis and Ferraris and McLarens and Koenigsegg's, and they want big ticket cars, or they want fast. It's all that makes the world go round. And then there are people that would rather drive a 356 at 55 miles an hour and just chill out and go through the gears and row. I don't know, man. That's what makes it interesting. That's what makes it fun. And that's why one of the reasons that Pcarmarket expanded is a lot of the people that have Porsches also love and drive other cars. We've seen that before with our Zymol friends and the different guys that have these beautiful Porsche collections, but have NSXs, Jaguars, Mercedes.
That's right. And by the way, the NSX went to a big Porsche collection.
Yeah, we talked
about the Zymol car.
Yeah, we talked about that last week. Where that went to, and now he has a Jaguar, a beautiful.
Oh, it's nice, yeah.
A beautiful Jaguar. It's on there right now. If this thing gets live before that ends, check that out.
What a nice way to get a collector car at a really fair price.
Oh my God!
What year is the game?
What year is that car?
It's a 90.
A 1990 XJS V12,
Yeah.
black, beautiful, really beautiful. Anyway, so so that's a little bit of a prep on the 997s. That we love them. There's some beautiful choices within the 997 realm. So we're gonna start going through a few of them because I know a lot of you are looking for what are the value of a high mileage car? What's the value of a real crisp, beautiful base car? What's the value of a turbo, a stick 997.1 stick, last Metzger? And what's the price of a PDK 997.2 turbo? And on and on and on, because everyone's in different parts of the market. So let's start off with, appropriately, a base. John, look at this beautiful car. This is a base Carrera 06, Jim.
Yeah.
This car, 63,000 miles, no stories, an absolute crisp, beautiful car. And I'll show you some photos, Jim. You can talk a little bit about this car.
Yeah, well, I'll use your terminology. When you talk about air underneath of a value of a car, I would actually be happier with this than probably a new basic 992. So it's like for $33,000, $34,000 this car sold for. It's like, look what you're getting. You know what I mean? It's just an amazing car, and this was a great seller. You could tell the car was well kept. He put a lot of photos. So whoever got this car got, in my opinion, one of the best bargains you could possibly get in the European sports car market today.
Yeah.
What's a better bargain than this?
You know what? For 30, the car sold for 30. What?
33
and change,
I believe,
plus. So
Plus
it was
the
like
fee.
36, 37,000. Yeah. And, at the end of the day, is like you said, when you're going to spend that type of money, is where are you going? What are you going to buy in that price range? That, by the way, is really, it's almost bulletproof as far as value. It's really not going down.
No.
And
if anything, this is a little up from what they were last year.
Yeah. It's
and
a
if
little
this was an S, you would have added, say, another $5,000 to $7,000 on, depending on the color scheme and the options and stuff like that. But this is just a tremendous value for this car. So, it's a good comp for the viewers because, add and deduct for the mileage and the particular example you're looking at. But this was a nice mid-mileage car, well-kept, good color, manual transmission, and it sold for, a really, really fair price all around. The seller was happy. I got to speak to him, great guy, and I'm sure the buyer's happy. So.
Yeah, no, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful car, well sold, and listen, I don't think anyone that follows the market, anyone that's doing valuations out there that understands would say that this car probably sold for a few bucks more than they thought it would. Because this car could have done 28 to 30 and been okay.
Yeah, it could have.
But the car did 30, almost 34 plus.
I think the seller did that. You know what I mean? 'Cause we always talk about presentation and stuff like that. You know what I mean? When you look at, this guy went above and beyond with the amount of photos and his responsiveness, and he built that confidence into somebody to maybe step up and put a few more dollars down on the car.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a key thing for everyone to remember. Responsive sellers, good photos, the write-up we base on everything you give us and research, making it as thorough as possible. And at the end of the day, I think, we got a comment on one of the YouTube stories we did is, why do you often say that this was well bought and well sold? Like they want me to have some controversy, controversy, and I appreciate the feedback is, well, let's talk about something that may be oversold or maybe undersold, and we'll get to that. But it's all subjective. Like a car like this, did it sell for $3 or $4 grand more than it maybe should have or could have done on a different platform? Or maybe if it was on, Car Gurus, it would have done a couple of bucks less. But the world is here. Everyone is here to bid on it.
Yeah.
It's the format and the platform. Does bring the people who want to bid on it and are serious about buying the car. But it's also the presentation, and give or take 3,000 or 4,000. This car pretty much.
That's what it is. And when you think about $3 grand is not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, where people clearly see what they're getting. It's an honestly represented car. That's what people are paying for. And we tell people that all the time. People buy into the seller as much as the car. If you're a good seller, it'll translate in your bits.
Yep. Yeah.
So.
Good stuff. Okay, let's move on to the next car. The next car is a little bit of a different animal here. This was a very special car, man. This was really beautiful. This was one of our, in fact, Kevin, who was going to be here today, was, I think, the seller on this car.
Seller, yeah.
And he is really an expert and knows, he gets great cars because, and you know why he gets great cars? Because people know and trust him. I mean, yes, he does very well putting the cars on our platform. We'll take a little bit of credit for that, Kev. But, he's a trusted, over many, many years, he's a trusted expert. He treats people right. His presentation is beautiful. His information is precise.
Yeah.
And Nice freaking car, too.
Yeah.
You got to let the car do some of the talking here. But look at this, Jim. 20,000 mile, 997.2 4S manual. Equipped. Tell everyone how this is equipped.
Well, this is an important car because a lot of people are talking about this, which is one of the reasons why we did this segment here. You know, what's going to happen now is you're going to see a lot of people raising their prices on 997s, and some of them will warrant it, and some of them won't. So that's why you have to look at this car and understand why it did this price. A lot of people think it was high, and it's definitely showing that these cars are on the rise. But the reason this price is high is because you can't find these cars. There are basically no 997.2 coupes in the country with a stick for sale with all the boxes checked. And what I mean by that is you got a clean DME, which is paramount on this car. It's an original car, not a tracked car. And then on top of it, you have all the right goodies. Sport seats, sport chrono, turbo 2 wheels. It's a well-spec'd car, so really it's got every box checked, and that's what gave it that push. You know what I mean? And just to give everyone a little clarity, you know, a year or two ago, this was a $60,000 to $65,000 car.
Yeah. Well, also, you know, this I'm going to say this because I bore you with this a million times. I think one of the big selling features about this car are the wheels.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know, I don't necessarily like the turbo 2 wheels on a turbo. But when you put the turbo 2 wheels on a Carrera,
right,
an S or a 4S, look at that.
Yeah,
look at that shot.
You can tell it's special. Yep.
You can tell it's special. It just works. But when you put it on the turbo, it's almost like it dresses the car down. This dresses it up a little bit.
And you say the same thing about the turbo 1 wheels on these cars, too.
Same thing. No, same thing. Yeah. Absolutely. But this is an absolutely beautiful car. Again, beautifully represented. And like you had mentioned here, the sport chrono, the sport seats, the turbo 2 wheels, optioned the nice way, great responsive seller, and so forth. Is there anything left to say about this car? Except the fact that it's sold. Some people, their jaws will drop. The car sold for $83,000 plus 87 or 88 grand.
And I believe it went to California, so call it 90,000.
So the person's into this car for 90,000 with transportation and so forth. But you know what?
Look what you're getting.
If you buy a car like this for that much money, you know what? If you overpaid a little bit, like, so here we go. If this car would have sold for 80 grand, it would have been really ideal. All in 80 grand, right?
Yeah.
Being in this car for 83 plus the fee, big deal. You got the best of the best for this offering, this model, this spec, and wow, is this going to be?
Keep in mind, the car was well over 100,000 when it was new. It turned 10 years old this year. You know, there is inflation. You know what I mean? So how unrealistic is it to say that this car could sell for its original MSRP again?
Yeah, no, that's fair. 993s
have never sold at MSRP. You know what I mean? They're still
fair.
going for over MSRP.
That's fair. And you know what? Listen to me. Again, mid-80s on this car. Look at this thing. What a great sports car. You know, they're bulletproof, reliable, fun. They still have that visceral sports car feel as we spoke about before. And there's not much downside to this. So, amen. Good luck to the buyer. Congratulations to the seller. Beautiful, beautiful car.
Yeah.
Enjoy. Next over here, let's talk about pop music. No, let's talk about this 2012 997.2 Turbo
S.
Thanks for catching me up. I'm a little behind the moment here. So it's a 997.2 Turbo S Macadamia. I know, Jim, you have a soft spot for Macadamia. You have a beautiful GTS in this color with the center lock wheels. But 26,000 mile, rare color, matching wheels.
Yep.
And matching interior.
Well, espresso interior, yeah.
Espresso interior.
Yeah, which is a big deal.
Man, is it a big deal.
Yeah.
Let's see what kind of big deal it is. Look at that. Look at this. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, you listen, black would have not ruined this car. Black would have been fine. But when you open up the door on a macadamia car of this caliber, it's
the same thing with dark blue. If you put a black interior compared to a tan or something like this, it's a big deal.
Exactly. Then you open this up and it's like, wow, that's a little special.
Yeah. Oh, that's a nice car. That's
beautiful.
A nice car. And this is just showing you got a real healthy pulse on the market with these cars because, you could pretty much, I mean, let's face it, if you're spending $100 grand on a used Porsche, you could afford the 991 Turbo S too. I mean, they're selling very close to this type of price. So these cars are really holding their own. Yep.
And what's interesting is any video here? No video?
I don't think there's a video on this one.
Interesting. Okay, so, non-Metzger motor, for those of you that may not know, the 997.2 2012s were not Metzger motors anymore, which is fine. These are very, very reliable, powerful, motors. And these cars are also holding value and appreciating because of that same thing. It's a sports car. It's got great size. The hydraulic steering, it's really, the feel is fantastic. Me, I'm more of a naturally aspirated guy. Love that power band, that linear power experience. But if you're a turbo guy, this is really one that you absolutely would want to consider in the PDK format. Beautiful car. What was the original window sticker here? Looks like about 100 and what?
171.
170. Well, that's a big ticket for that car, right?
Yeah, it's up there. I've seen a few for a few bucks more. We had a Cabriolet once that I think it touched 200. That was one of the most expensive 997s I've seen.
Yep.
But the guy wrapped everything in leather, so it'll do that to you.
Yeah, they can get quite expensive. But anyway, all right, so let's move on. We got enough with this one?
Yeah, no, that's a nice car, and that's a good state. That's a good state of the market. That's a good comp for
That's a good state of the market. So again, 102,000 all
with
in.
the fee.
102,000 all in. Nice color combination, rare color combination in a PDK turbo.
Yeah, keep in mind if that was a
997.2.
standard color combo, it would have sold for a couple of bucks less. I mean,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah,
So,
we recently had one in a more normal color that sold for about this price, but with less mileage. So, that kind of averages it out.
Gotcha. Okay, so now let's move on here to the next one. This is a little bit. We're going to go a little bit higher mileage, a little bit more of a mid-grade driver, I guess, because there's a lot of you that are looking for this type of car. Here's a car that has 100 and how many thousand?
121,000 miles.
122,000 miles, yep. And beautiful color, but these wheels, I don't think the wheels hurt it or helped it. I like the original wheels, but these BBS's black wheels on here look nice, so I don't really think that was a help or a hurt. But tell us about the car, Jim, and how we did with the numbers.
Well, I think the seller could have maybe squeezed a few extra bucks out of it, so good job to the buyer, just because of the presentation. Yeah, I mean, if he would have cleaned up that interior, you basically can't even tell in the photos that has a cocoa interior. So,
oh, really?
So it would be common to see a nice, decent, 997 C2S sell in the low to mid 20s. But the reason this car, I think, got closer to the 30 mark.
This is cocoa?
Yeah, it's cocoa. See, if you look at the top of the dash, see where it's hitting the sun?
Yes.
You would never know that. So, so between this car, this is like a very special build, this car. This is the first 997 I drove, was exactly this spec. My same friend that I just mentioned had the Tiptronic Turbo, bought this car, and it had the ceramics.
Sports seats?
Yeah, the silver cocoa. It had the lobster claw wheels, which is what I'm assuming this had the rear wipers, sports seats, full leather.
Painted tunnel.
Yeah, so this is a really, really cool spec car. You know what I mean? So I think the seller does a little cleaning and a little sprucing up, and he's got himself a heck of a car here.
Yeah.
And it's an S.
What's that?
It's an S, 3.8. So there you go. That's a good comp. And we've had a couple, if you go through our site and you care to look at the results, you'll see some Carrera S's with this mileage. They're going to be between the 20 and the 30 mark, all within reason. I mean, but this was a well-optioned car, so I thought it was a pretty good standout.
Yep. Okay, next we have a 2008 997. Now, here we go. Here's a turbo. Now, here's a .1 turbo, Metzger motor, stick. 22,000 mile example. The right price, the right car, the right seller, responsive, the right car, meaning that these are just on fire. You get a stick Metzger car. And one of the things you and I will debate about is when I see a car that does not have the factory wheels, especially when it's a turbo, I'm looking and saying, what else is modified? When I look at this car, I see a modified car. I know it's not.
Right.
And I know that you love these champion wheels. It was a big deal back then, right?
Yeah. It's a product of your environment. I lived in South Florida, for those of you that don't know that, for maybe 5 years. And I was used to pulling into the local Starbucks or wherever I was going, and a good number of 911s that you saw had these wheels on it. They were selling them at the dealer with this, even not Champion dealers. Like, you'd see them at the other Porsche dealers. It was a very common wheel for the car, and Champion was known to put out a great product. It was Porsche spec approved. They had the factory's blessing on everything they did, and I liked their wheels. You know what I mean? So I'm used to it. But I get, as someone who maybe never lived in South Florida, wasn't exposed to them as much, Because I know what you're talking about. If the car had like a set of aftermarket wheels that didn't really belong, the first thing you look at is what else happened to this car. So I can empathize with that.
Yeah, and again, I'm not knocking the car at all. It's just that when I see the wheels that are not stock on a turbo, it makes me think of what else was modified in the car. And but however, the car sold for $83,000 plus, so probably 87, close to 90 grand all in, right?
Yep.
And definitely a beautiful car.
Yeah, and this was a good car because you don't see a lot of these from private sellers. Good DME. Yeah, I mean, the interior had some nice trim options and stuff like that. So it's a really, really nice car. We've had a few sell in the 90s with like lower mileage. So this was just about right. And, this is what the market's looking for right now is Metzger coupes, with a stick with no stories. This is a nice piece.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going through some of the photos here to get the condition. So there you have it. It's a 22,000 mile 2008 Metzger 997 turbo 6-speed. The car was sold for like 87 grand all in, I guess, ish. And that's the market. That's pretty much the market on these cars now. A turbo in this condition, a Metzger turbo. And then finally, actually not finally, I have a few more of these to go into, here is a car that was on BAT. It's sold on BAT. It's a 2009 Cabriolet, and beautiful photos. Nice car.
Yep.
38,000 mile. Is that right? 38,000 mile 4S. We love the 4S again, and even the 996s, 997s. When you see that back, they just do a real nice job.
The reflector is. I don't know why we just love that reflector.
It really is a beautiful,
beautiful.
It's a beautiful thing. The reflector. Where are the pictures here? So yeah, nice car. Red calipers on the S, right?
It's a 4S. Yeah.
It's a 4S. Yeah, no stories here. It looks like a nice car. It's funny. The seller went out of the way to say they painted the tow hitch cover. Okay, I love that's an honest seller, and that's the way you want it. If somebody's willing to say that the tow hitch cover was painted, you know that the car was probably very, very well cared for by a very studious owner. Ironically, we sold this car a few years ago.
We owned it, yeah.
We owned this car personally years ago. And, Jim, you actually recognized it right away, which was very impressive.
Yeah, we had so many 997s. I mean, we could talk for hours about them. I mean, that's why we know so much about them. But, yeah, this is a nice car, and we thought it was an important comp because, one, you need to the viewers need to see a Cabriolet. Two, they need to see a PDK. The PDKs are holding their own. They're not going to bring the kind of money a stick is going to bring. But they're certainly not like a Tiptronic type of value. I mean, they're still a fun, engaging car. Brad, who's on our staff here, he has air cools with sticks, but he has a PDK 997. He loves it, swears by it. So it is a great car. But if you're just looking for an investment, I mean, obviously the stick is going to be the one that's going to probably go into the stratosphere in the future.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, just a fun car. And you know what, even Cabriolet form, I know a lot of people are really more coupe as far as the performance, the look, because of that roof line in the coupe is spectacular. Look at that beautiful dog. Yeah. But they did a nice job with the hips on the 997s, didn't they? With the Cabriolets,
they did.
As a matter of fact, I don't know if you remember, I bought an 06 turbo before I even knew you.
Oh, you mean the 4S? The 4S,
and which is really this car, I mean, pretty much. And the reason I bought the car was because I saw it on the highway one time driving with the top down, and it looked fat and beefy and gorgeous. Yeah. And I think it changed my whole. After the 996 Cabriolet, which I think took a little bit of a hit, although we do love the 4S Cabriolets and they're great cars, the 4S Cabriolet and the 997 killed it.
Yeah, the consensus is the Cabriolet needs the wide fenders. You start with the M491, America Roadster.
Yes, yep.
I mean, the 4S, 996, which I think is that's one of my favorite 911 convertibles. You know what I mean? Aside from speedsters and stuff like that, that is just I like that better than this, not for nothing. I really love that car.
Yeah, no,
it's beautiful.
It really is, But anyway, the hips on these, the 4S, it's just fantastic cars. But anyway, so that's that, and then we'll go to another auction on BAT, I believe, which we loved also, which was
This is an important car, yeah.
This is just downright gorgeous, man.
Yeah.
This was a one-owner, 8,000-mile GTS in a paint-to-sample blue. I tried to find the color here, but it just says paint-to-sample blue. I mean, what could you say about this car, Jim? You even said I would sell my macadamia one for this,
This is a nice car. This is nice. Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show what people are willing to pay for the right. The GTSs are so rare that they're actually commanding more money than a 997 GT3, not an RS, but you could buy a decent GT3, 80s, 90s, and a nice one for low hundreds, or even high 90s, and look what these GTSs are pulling.
Yeah, absolutely. They're great cars. They're great values new. Yeah. They're even a great value new, and they just look good.
We got in the 90s for one with an aero kit, a white one, on our site, and that was like last year. And now look at this one. And this one's a spectacular build.
I don't think you can get much nicer than this.
No.
This is just really, and yeah, like we talked about before. I think once you go past this car, you're going to an RS or a GT3. Right, because naturally aspirated, you're going to go to a GT3. Just the colors make these cars, and the wheels, these.
Well, those wheels serve the car really well because center locks was a big deal on these, and to have these wheels on the GTS is rare. But imagine if the guy who bought this has the blue 997 Speedster and he parks it next to it. That's because I look at this car, it just looks like a Speedster coupe.
Really, you know what? You're right. So, look at that view.
Yeah. And mechanically, this is that 997 Speedster. It has the power kit. It's the same thing. So when you look at it, the Speedsters are well over $200,000. This car is still a bargain. You know what I mean? Yeah,
and it's sold for $126,000
plus the $5,000.
Plus the $5,000, so like $131,000. So this is all the money. But you know what? When you have a car like this color, you're going to have to step up if you're going to, because there's a lot of people that are going to want this car. So there you go. Here's a very, very highly in demand PTS GTS 997.2.
Yep.
That is big money.
Yeah, that's the end of the 997.
That's big money. That's the end. So here's another beautiful variant of the 997. So let's go on here. Now we have one that this car is currently
live.
We are hoping that we can get this up before it ends.
Yeah.
An absolutely stunning 09.1 997 turbo. And what's really interesting about this car, and I'll let you tell more about it, Jim, is forget the fact that it's the malachite, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, green, over the beautiful, beautiful tan interior. But it's also a .1, so it has the Metzger motor. Right. It does have the upgraded PCM, and it's a very, very special car because it has those things with a Metzger motor and in an incredible color. It almost makes you not even worry about missing a coupe. That's how beautiful this cabriolet is, because you want to see that interior and you want that open air riding. But what do you think of this?
Yeah, you nailed it with that comment. It makes you forget about a coupe because Porsche loves confusing everyone, right? So 997.2 is 09, but of course in the turbo it's not a .2. They waited till 10 to do that. So you have the .2 interior, like David said, or with the .1 outside and the Metzger motor. So this is the final Metzger turbo you could buy. This is a stick. And even though it's not paint to sample, I put this in the paint to sample category because first of all, I've never seen one of these, besides this one. And the condition.
You sure this is definitely not paint to sample?
It's not paint to sample. Well, they had this color. This is just one of those things that nobody ordered, and now here we are 10, 11 years later, and it's like, wow, I wish I could get that.
Oh, my goodness.
And that car's in the basement here. The seller dropped it off, so we got to see it. It's stunning. That car is stunning.
And that brown top.
Yeah, the brown top is beautiful.
I mean, I really don't believe you could have done any better of a job with this particular car.
Well, it's funny. I had one gentleman who we talk all the time, Clay, and he said he wishes it had a beige top. And I'm like, that's interesting. I love the brown top. I think it looks amazing. But, everybody's got their opinions. But, this is certainly a second-to-none car, and somebody's going to be very, very happy with it. I mean, you could see it's already at $81,000, and there's days left on it. So this is a good one to put away and enjoy in the summer. And
look at that. Look at the tunnel painted, the hardback seats.
Yeah.
Just absolutely beautiful. 15,000 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone's going to get something beautiful.
And by the way, it looks better in the sun, that car.
Yeah, it was
we have some weather restrictions here right now, but if we could have shot that on a nice day with some better background, it would look even nicer.
That's a great point. Yeah. I know the crew, they're taking photos. They did not want to bring this car on the road because of the snow and salt.
Yeah, it's never been.
So the car has never been in that environment, and it continues not to be. So they kind of did what they could do the best with the on property here with the snow and the snow background and stuff. But wow. Anyway, someone's going to wind up with a beautiful car here. So. I think that's about all we have, Jim.
Yeah.
We I think pulled about 8 or 9 very, very, very special turbos.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 997s that really, went through the gamut of your base car, your little high mileage variant, a beautiful 997.2 6-speed 4S that was like a brand new car that did some tremendous money. And then, on that, we pulled that blue one, which is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
And then the turbo, the
Black Metzger coupe,
the Black Metzger coupe, and the non-Metzger 997
Turbo S.
Macadamia Turbo S. So there it is. We have a good gamut. I hope that was information. Is there anything else worth mentioning?
No, I'm sure there'll be questions. Send us your questions. We'd love to answer them. But the 997s are they're hot. Everyone's talking about them. So that's why we're talking about them.
Yeah, no, and you know what? Just a little bit of caution here is that that there's going to be a point now when people see the results of some of these cars, they're really going to go for the moon and start to really, somebody that has a 20,000 mile 997.2 4S is going to expect 85,000 to 90 grand for their car. Now that's the only downside, I guess, for when cars do perform.
Yeah, well, the good thing is the market speaks. And I love when people come to us for the advice because we're not looking to buy the cars. You know what I mean? So we like to give people our honest feedback and guide them as best as possible because, a lot of people do shoot themselves in the foot with being overpriced. They'll get a great auction, they'll get a lot of activity, and then that activity goes away. They could have had good money for the car, and they lost that opportunity.
Yeah. So if you're anywhere in the ballpark of where you're looking to sell it, obviously you put a fair reserve, nice car. It's going to get the numbers that are fair for the current market.
That's right.
So one thing I want to mention is, my son actually reminded me of this because I never say this during our podcast, but right below this video you're watching right now, there's a subscribe button, and he would say, "Smash that subscribe button," but I'll just say, tap it. Tap that subscribe button. That will give you a notification every time. Just go there right now, just press subscribe. And what will happen is every time we have a video up, which is, we hope more often as time goes on, but we're doing them as fast as we can. You'll get a notification and get a chance to enjoy, an update and maybe one of our future guests we have planned. We'll get a chance to get the guests back on here, which because of COVID was a little bit of an issue, but we're going to get our guests. We have a couple planned. We also have a new show coming up, which we'll talk about more, about driving other people's cars, and I think you guys will really enjoy that as well. So please go on to Pcarmarket.com. Check out what's currently on there. We have a beautiful selection of Porsches, and we also have some other nice cars that Ferraris and Alfa Romeos and all kinds of other stuff that you'll check out on there. And also, please submit your car. We need more vehicles because our audience is global, and there's a big demand. There's a big demand. We can promise you this: you put your car on Pcarmarket.com, Pcarmarket, submit it. You will get the handheld service that you need to feel comfortable, even if you're not Jim, typically a lot of people are not auction people.
That's right.
This is their first foray into the auction, a lot of the people these days. And I want you to know that we're going to make it very easy, very comfortable for you to come over and into this new world of auctioning your car. We'll show you how to respond, so people can feel comfortable with your car, and it can make it a fun experience, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So check us out, Pcarmarket Live. Check out the store, and please send your comments and hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching. We know your time can be spent anywhere, so taking the time to watch our podcast is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you.